Alaska as ballast in ships returning from the gold rush to Grays Harbor. The murals, the beautiful gas lamps have been electrified, and the incredible stained glass up in the dome. Today we see this courthouse as something that's protected and preserved by the people of Grays Harbor for all of us to enjoy. This building is almost beyond belief, and it truly is one of my favorite places. Alfred Pritchard came home from the gold rush in the Yukon Territory, looking for a place to build a house and raise a family. He scoured the shores of Lake Washington and found a beautiful island on the south end of the lake, which was later called Pritchard Island. When the lake was lowered for the new locks at Ballard, it became not an island, but a peninsula. And today, it's one of the most beautiful swimming beaches in our state. I love it there because many of my cousins were raised close by, and we used to go down to Pritchard Island to swim. In the 1950s, my aunt took us to Pritchard Island, and we were going to swim. It was a really hot day, and we found out that the lake was just too polluted. We looked out over the lake, and you could virtually see the pollution in the lake. And it was then when guys like Jim Ellis and others stepped forward to develop something called forward thrust and clean up Lake Washington. To those individuals, we'll always be indebted. And Pritchard Island Beach is now a great place to swim once again. And it truly is one of my favorite places. This little historic home, one of the oldest structures in the state of Washington, is called the Jackson Courthouse. Located here on Jackson Prairie, just south of Chehalis, at what used to be a very busy corner called Mary's Corner. The early settlers coming to the territorial capital of Olympia often had to walk north from the Columbia River. This was a way station, a stop, often an overnight location to camp before they made the journey on into the foot of Puget Sound. Our first governor spent the night here on his way to the state capitol. It was later used as a courthouse, and often it's referred to as the Jackson Courthouse. It was the location where the early justice system of our state prevailed. Today, it's preserved for all of us to enjoy and to see. It truly is one of my favorite places. Some people call it a steamboat town, other people call it a towboat town. Some say it's an artist community, some say it's agricultural. It's definitely historical. It's the beautiful community of LaConner. Some people call it an agricultural town, and it certainly was the connection between Skagit Valley agriculture and the steamboats that plied these waters in early days, taking products to Seattle and even as far as San Francisco and Portland. Some people call it a community only known for its artists. It certainly was that as well. Some of Washington State's most famous artists were highlighted in a Life magazine article in 1953. Morris Graves, Ken Callahan, Guy Anderson, a number of folks were recognized worldwide. All of them had lived or worked here in LaConner. The Rainbow Bridge in LaConner is a really interesting story. As the bridge was being completed, it was painted a base color of orangish red. And the people of this town loved it so much, they said, "We don't want a green bridge." Even though state law says every bridge has to be green, these folks said, we don't want that. The fight went on for months and months, and finally the state of Washington backed down. And LaConner got their orange and reddish Rainbow Bridge.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The media has asked all the speakers to say their name and spell it so that they can get it correctly for the record. My name is Hamdi Mohammed. My first name is spelled H-A-M-D-I. My last name is spelled Mohammed, M-O-H-A-M-E-D. I want to thank everyone today for joining us. We are at SeaTac Airport's Office Center, Stock, and I am here in my capacity as your Port of Seattle Commissioner. It's an honor to be here. I want to welcome the members of the press who are here with us today. I want to welcome our community leaders, elected officials, union siblings, faith leaders, and concerned citizens as we address President Trump's travel ban 2.0. As the operators of SCA Airport and the Port of Seattle is more than just a gateway for travel, trade, or commerce. We are a vibrant community powered by a diverse workforce that reflects our region's values of inclusion, of opportunity. Many of the dedicated workers who keep our airport running clean the facilities, handle the baggages, serve passengers, and ensure safety hail from the countries that are now being targeted by this travel ban 2.0. Their contributions are the heartbeat of SCA Airport, connecting families, driving economic growth, and enriching the cultural fabric of the Pacific Northwest that we are all so proud of.
Yeah.
We stand firm with our workforce and community advocating for their rights and recognizing that they are essential. They play an essential role in making our airport a welcoming gateway for millions and millions of passengers each year. Look, I was born in Somalia, one of the countries that is listed in the ban. I arrived in the United States as a 3-year-old refugee. After my family went through a rigorous vetting process to bring us to safety. And let me just tell you, that process is still in place and it gets tougher each year, but it's being undermined by this travel ban. Growing up, I watched my mother work tirelessly at SCA Airport, juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet and to support businesses in our region. Today's travel ban is driven by fear instead of facts, driven by fear instead of evidence, singling out people based on where they're from, people like my family, based on how they pray, and not on credible threats. And I say that is reckless, and it weakens our national security, and it devastates families. It separates families. But this isn't just about one policy. It is about a pattern. Muslim bans, refugee caps, bans on books, attacks on women's reproductive rights, discrimination covered and called laws. But do you know what we say today? We say, not on our watch, not in our region, and not in our names. Is that right? Yes. While the Port of Seattle does not issue visas, we do not set federal laws or policies, but we do have a moral obligation to push for transparency, to demand accountability, and to ensure that SCA Airport remains a place where everyone is treated with dignity, that everyone is treated with respect. Although no direct flights from the banned countries land here, the message of this ban still resonates, harming travelers, families, and trust. The Port of Seattle Commission is committed to collaborating with federal partners, community organizations, and legal advocates to ensure that the implementation of these executive orders do not undermine the dignity and the rights of those we serve. Today, you will hear from voices across our region, sharing their perspective on this ban's impact on Washington State and beyond. Our goal is to foster understanding, to support those who are affected, and to uphold the principles that strengthen our community. Again, I want to thank you all for being here. And some of you may know I'm also a department director for the City of Seattle Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. And I know Mayor Harrell is here with me. Do you want to say a word or two?
Okay.
I know, it's hard to follow.
I told Hamdi I wasn't going to say anything. What you said was powerful. And I think I'm just going to go off script as I'm known to do. Look at this. Look at this. This is the warrior community here that will fight for our values here. As Director Hamdi said, this is just bad policy. This is bad for our country, bad for our city, bad for our county. We know who we are. We know how much we treasure and value people coming from different countries. We are better because of that. And to be very candid with you, most of the countries on the list are African or Middle Eastern nations. That is not a coincidence. That is intentional. I have to say, from a very selfish standpoint, that as we get prepared for the FIFA World Cup coming to North America, now is the time to reaffirm our commitment to being a destination the world can trust. This is our time to shine with our great immigrant and refugee and asylum seeker communities. This is a time to brag about how welcome we are, to show this beautiful diversity here. This is us at our best, fighting against us at our worst. I want to thank you for being such a shining example of us at our best. One of my best hires, by the way. So we will make sure from a practical standpoint that we have our rapid response teams in place. We will always lead by love and compassion, and we will follow the outstanding leadership of our Attorney General, one of the best attorneys we could have elected in the state to carry on this fight. And I close by saying this. Especially during this month when we celebrate and recognize Pride, Juneteenth, Immigrant Heritage Month, recognizing that 18% of Seattle residents are foreign-born, recognizing that 24% of King County residents were born outside of the United States. I close by your words. I think they were mine and you copied me. Not on our watch.
That's right.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Now I have the honor of welcoming One America's Executive Director, Roxana, and CARE Washington's Executive Director, Imran. Please welcome them.
Thank you. My name is Imran Siddiqui. I'm the Executive Director of CARE Washington. That's IMRAANSIDDIQI. And we are a chapter of America's largest civil rights and advocacy organization for Muslims. But I do want to acknowledge all the leaders that we have behind us today. Give them a round of applause. Please, we have people from different organizations from all over the Pacific Northwest here representing all different religions, all different colors here in solidarity. So please talk to them afterward and get their quotes for the media as well. In 2017, I was a plaintiff on the first lawsuit filed against Trump's Muslim ban. It was clear back then the administration aimed to use anti-Muslim animus, anti-refugee sentiment, and xenophobia as wedge issues to excite their base. We saw how each time the Trump administration suffered setbacks in court, how they redrew the lines so the travel ban would be permitted by the Supreme Court. Fast forward to 2025, and they've used these very same parameters to draw up this version of the travel ban. But make no mistake, this version of the travel ban is driven by the very same anti-Muslim animus, the very same anti-refugee sentiment, and the very same xenophobia as the original version. And just like 2017, we must fight back. This ban will likely prevent people from being reunited with their families in the U.S., have a disruptive effect on our economy, our research institutions, and collaborative efforts with banned countries. This will disproportionately impact black and brown communities, regardless of their immigration status, due to the enhanced scrutiny that's happening at the airports. And this isn't just theory, this is happening right now. I'm getting calls and texts from community members who are afraid to travel due to the potential delays they'll face at the airports. But this will not just, impact those people who are traveling. This is already having an impact on a ground level. I've heard in the last 72 hours, people being targeted by hate crimes in Austin, in Frisco, Texas. Somebody got stabbed at a mosque. We just had a bomb threat here in Bothell against the mosque over there. And we had a high school student who was threatened, received a death threat at their school just over the course of the weekend. So at the end of the day, we need to stand up against these bigoted policies and call on all people of conscience to stand up against these horrible bans. I'll now pass it to my colleague, Roxana Nourouzi from One America.
Thank you, Imran. My name is Roxana Nourouzi, Roxananorouzi. I'm very proud to be standing here as the Executive Director of One America and with so many community leaders who I will call warriors who are standing up to fight racist policies that we've seen coming at us over the last 4 months. As an immigrant rights organization founded after the 9/11 attacks, and as crimes facing particularly Muslim and Sikh communities, we have faced hate crimes and government targeting. And then founded as Hate-Free Zone, One America 24 years later continues the fight. I myself am the daughter of Iranian immigrants who came to this country searching safety and freedom. If this ban was in place back then, I wouldn't even be here today. This travel ban is an extension of this administration's cruelty. It is racist, it is xenophobic, and it perpetuates a pattern of targeting and terrorizing Black and brown communities. Rather than enacting travel bans and snatching and disappearing communities, this administration should be focused on ensuring we all have what we need to thrive: healthcare, housing, and affordable groceries. Instead, they're trying to distract us from their inability to deliver what families need by blaming, threatening, and targeting us. The ban that went into effect fully restricts entry in the United States from 12 countries, including Afghanistan, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. And it particularly restricts entry of people from 7 other countries as well. It applies to only individuals who are outside of the U.S. on June 9th and do not already have a valid visa, green card, or are U.S. citizens. Now, not only do immigrants from these countries have to live adapting to an administration that raids workplaces and schools, deploys the military to incite violence on American soil against its own people, and separates families and puts our people in detention, but now we also have to contend with the reality that our loved ones will not be able to come see us, that this country is telling us in our communities that we are not welcome here. But we know the truth is that we belong here. We know that when we come together, like we're doing today with immigrant, labor, community, and all the incredible elected leaders that are standing together, we are powerful. We know that when we exercise our rights and organize, we are resilient. And we know that when we unite to reject Trump's attempts to scapegoat immigrants and instead see our liberation as tied up with one another, we can win. And that's why One America and so many organizations here in the state and across the country are focusing our efforts on meeting people where they are, listening to the issues that affect them, and moving into action collectively to build the power necessary to create a country where we can all thrive, where we all belong, and we are all welcome and can call this country home. Now, I'd like to invite Ziauddin, our fierce organizer, to share a little more about his story and the deep impact this ban is having on the Afghans who call Washington home.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here today. My name is Ziauddin. I spell Ziauddin. And I'm an organizer with One America. I'm also a proud Afghan immigrant and a member of a community that has been deeply impacted by the U.S. immigration policies, especially travel ban. I immigrated to the United States after serving as an interpreter for the U.S. Army in Afghanistan. Like many others, I was forced to leave due to increasing violence and threats to my safety. I left behind my community, loved one, and everything I had built in search of freedom, security, and the chance to rebuild my life in a place where I could live without fear. Today I want to talk about the real human cost of being disbanded, and the lasting harm it continues to inflict on Afghan families. For many Afghans, this isn't just a policy. It is a crashing blow to their hopes for safety, reunification, and stability, it has turned dream into despair. Let me share the story of Hassani, one America's leader and fellow Afghan immigrant whose family was directly impacted. She told us, "Today my heart is heavy with the travel ban news. My family, who were in the process of obtaining the U.S. visa, have had their hopes shattered. They sold everything they had in Afghanistan, seeking safety and better future, only to be met with uncertainty and despair. The travel ban and policies that target entire communities don't just close borders, they close doors on dreams, tear family apart, and leave countless lives in limbo." Hassani's stories is just one of thousands. Families escaping violence, persecution, and economic collapse were left with nothing, not even certainty that they could reunite with the people they love most. This travel ban created not only official roadblocks, but it also deep emotional trauma. As someone who is organized within this community every day, I've witnessed the pain, the frustration, and the fear of our family carry. But I've also witnessed something else, strange resilience and a powerful commitment to keep moving forward, despite every setback. These connections keep me going, and that's why the rest of the year I'll be devoting my time to continue to go block by block and speak with our people to listen about the issue they are facing and work to do something about it together. I urge you to join me. I speak today not to point fingers, but to call for compassion, to call for fairness, dignity, and a future where no family must suffer because of where they came from or how they pray. Policies may shift, but the human need for safety, for family, and for hope does not. So today I ask decision makers and all of us to remember the people behind these policies. Let us ensure that Afghan family, other community impacted by the travel ban, and all immigrants' family are treated with dignity. Let's open the door that were once slammed shut and begin to heal to wounds caused by the year of exclusion and fear. A thriving and welcoming home is possible if we can take collective action and fight for it. Thank you so much. Now I am going to pass it on to Abdullahi Shakal from Union Drive.
Kind of tall, so I'm gonna. Thank you so much for everyone. My name is Abdullahi Shakul. I'm Somali American, also a rideshare driver and a member of Drivers Union. In addition to that, I'm also a service member. Thank you so much. The current policy, the separation of the families. As a rideshare drivers, we are having a lot of, burden to deal with, and not forgetting the previous ban, the kind of impact it had. There was a lot of stuff that was going on. There was a miss of, rideshare drivers. They could not attend the wedding of their daughters, the birth of their child, and also the funerals of their parents. So in that way, the rideshare drivers is kind of, is an added burden to them for this ban. And that things, as a rideshare driver, I think it is kind of unfair to us, and it has to be reversed. The second things we would like to put out today is the rideshare are kind of scared because they can't, there's kind of a limited space to work. Because there's some places they can't go and pick, especially like JPLM. They can't go and pick because of a certain certain things that have been agreed between the Russia companies and the DOD headquarters. So in that way, the Russia drivers are kind of limited for their movement. No, it's also worth mentioning the current climate of the country. Not everyone, is a neutralized citizen and has that privilege to travel forth and back. So some of them has a legal citizen, like permanent resident. So if you go back and then coming back, and now that is where you're going to have to deal with, the immigration sector, because you don't know how your fate will be. So in that way, we're kind of affected in one way or the other. So these family separation things and all this kind of nonsense going on, I think has to be resolved. And we can only go forward if we unite. And that's what they say, united we win and divided we fall. So I would like to welcome, with those few summaries, I would like to welcome the Representative Daya. Please come forward and say something. Thank you so much.
My name is Darya Farivar. That's Dayafarivar. I'm the state representative from the 46th Legislative District. And I'm proud, fiercely proud, to be the first Middle Eastern woman elected to our legislature. I'm proud to be Iranian American, proud to come from a nation that's been banned not because of who we are, but because of what we represent: resilience, strength, hope. I'm the daughter of parents who fled Iran, who left everything behind for the promise of liberty. I'm here because my grandparents, brave souls, packed up their family across oceans and borders in search of a better life for their children and their grandchildren. I am that dream fulfilled. I am living proof of that hope. And yet, here we are again. This travel ban is not new. It is hate repackaged. It is fear recycled. And it is xenophobia dressed as policy. We reject it. We reject the lie that our families are threats. We reject the silence that tells us to wait our turn. We reject the cruelty that treats immigrants as disposable. This ban will hurt people, real people. It will tear families apart at life's most sacred moments, keep loved ones from mourning, celebrating, and holding each other close in their final moments. It'll steal opportunities from brilliant students who deserve a future. It promises 4 more years of separation, 4 more years of sorrow, and we cannot allow it. I stand here with a coalition of leaders who refuse to give in. We stand against racism, xenophobia, and Islamophobia. The cruel truth is that when policies like this are announced, communities like mine hold their breath. We brace, not just for what it means to our families, but for how we'll be seen, how we'll be treated, and how we will be othered. But hear me clearly. Hate will not define us. We need to be heard, not just in moments of crisis, but always. That's why I'm pushing for a commission for Middle Eastern and North African communities for the state. Because our communities deserve a seat at the table, a voice in the room, and a say in the future that we are helping to build. And to our allies, we need you now. Your voices, your courage, your solidarity. Over 220 organizations have already stood with us. Not because they're directly targeted, but because they know none of us are free until we are all free. We will not be erased. We will not be silenced. We will organize, we will vote, and together we will win. My heart is heavy, but I find strength in knowing that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. And it's only fitting that I now get to pass this mic off to someone who I trust implicitly to fight for us all in the courtroom, Attorney General Nick Brown.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nick Brown, Nickbrown. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to all the community leaders and elected leaders that are joining this at this important moment. The voices of the impacted individuals and communities are so crucial in this moment as we face a real crisis in this country. The president says his travel ban is about national security, but this racist order will not make anyone safer. Instead, we are hearing the ways that all of the people who are here and the organizations that they represent are being impacted. The ban has stalled life-saving medical treatment for Haitian children who need to travel for care. It has struck fear into Afghans who helped defend the United States and the U.S. military and were expecting and deserving of sanctuary here from the Taliban. And it's issued at a time when thousands of international students are working every day to renew their visas for their school next year, including here in Washington State. This ban sweeps up medical patients, students, and families, and people fleeing persecution. Those people are not national security risk. They add value to this country, and it is obvious that this order is driven by Donald Trump's bleak, absurd social views and not for protecting the public. We know that this order will affect so many families in Washington, and we are taking a careful look within the Attorney General's office on whether or not we have a legal basis to challenge it. As you know, in 2017, Washington was the first state to challenge Trump's travel ban, banning Muslims from this community. And we were the first state because our Attorney General at the time had extraordinary vision and leadership. And I want to give Governor Ferguson so much credit for doing that in 2017. I remind my colleagues in the Attorney General's offices across the country all the time that there was a time when challenging the president's illegal orders was looked at skeptically, but Washington stood up. Washington stood up in 2017, and I remember at the time working for Governor Inslee and seeing the tremendous work that was happening in the AG's office. And we are actively looking at ways to challenge this ban, but it will be difficult, despite the fact that we've now filed 21 cases against the Trump administration. Unfortunately, since the 2018 United States Supreme Court upheld the most recent version of Trump's travel ban, the court has gotten increasingly hostile to challenges like the one that may be necessary here, because the Supreme Court has frankly gotten worse since 2017. So now as we try to find ways to travel this ban, we face a much more difficult challenge than before. But regardless of how we fight this ban, the president's order is clearly unfair, discriminatory, and will impact millions and millions of people who pose no risk whatsoever to our country. And when we couple this travel ban with everything else that we are seeing in this country at this moment, including the president's violent escalation of events in California this week, we know what we are seeing from the President of the United States of America is creeping authoritarianism. We are seeing dictatorial behavior. We're seeing suppression of what the president views as the opposition. We're seeing efforts to erase history, to silence powerful voices against him. And we're seeing time and time again a disregard for the law. These are all characteristics of a fascist government. And we need to use not only our legal tools, but use our collective voices to reaffirm the moral righteousness of this country. We can use our courts, we can use our laws, but we need to use our love and our character as well in this moment. Because it's going to take all of these things pulling together to reject the hate that we are seeing from Donald Trump, to reject the lawlessness that we are seeing from Donald Trump, and to reaffirm that the people in this country deserve to be here, and they add value to our state and to our entire nation. I want to thank again the organizers for bringing us all together to reaffirm that moral clarity in this moment, because it is so necessary today more than ever. I am proud to introduce Governor Bob Ferguson, my predecessor in the Attorney General's office, to say more. Thank you, Governor.
First, everybody, please join me in thanking Nick and the incredible team in the AG's office for the fantastic work they've been doing these past few months. That team works very hard under great leadership in that office. Nick, you mentioned the first travel ban in 2017, and I'll always be proud that Washington State was indeed the first state to take on that first travel ban, the first state to take on Donald Trump, and the first state to defeat Donald Trump in court. And that was, of course, on the first travel ban. It is a little difficult to wrap my mind around the fact that we are back here again on another travel ban. And I'm looking at a whole lot of folks who were here back at a press conference we had 8 years ago on this exact same issue. That said, we're here. And the previous speakers really covered all the main points I wanted to cover. So maybe what I'll just share is a short story related to that first travel ban. So after we went to court and put a stop to it, as the proceedings went forward, I received thousands of letters from Washingtonians, people all across the country, and really all around the world. And many of those were handwritten letters. And in the process of doing that, it was deeply moving experience to read about the individual experiences that people had gone through, the impacts on their families. And in the process of doing that, if somebody handwrote a letter, I handwrote a letter back to them. And during that process, my kids were just 8 years old, I think, at the time. And so I had some letters at home, and one night I was there next to my daughter, and I had a letter from a young girl, as it turned out, from one of the affected countries who had handwritten a letter to me. And in the letter, she wrote the following words: "Because you stood up, I can be here." And while I was responding to her, my daughter was sitting next to me, and she saw the letter and could see it was written by a kid, in handwriting. And she asked what I was doing. So I explained as best I could what was going on. And so Katie could sort of comprehend what was happening through the lens of this other girl exactly her age and what the travel ban meant to her and to her family. And so Katie said, "Why are you writing back to her?" And I said, "Well, it's polite. Somebody sends you a letter, you write a letter back to them." So she said, "Can I add a note too?" So she drew like a picture of a butterfly, I think it was, and added a note to it. And what happened was the two of them made a connection. And in the end, the two of them had a play date together at our home with her family. And, it always struck me, the idea that two 7 or 8 year old kids can fully understand things in a way that our president cannot. And, I'm not sure what to say as an American about that. Other than I do think that play date represents what we all care about, right? Diversity makes us better. Coming from different cultures helps us all out. It certainly changed my life going through that travel ban experience, not so much as a lawyer, although that was deeply impactful, but more just as a human being. Being connected to many of the people behind me here today, my daughter's experience, what that meant, hearing from people all around the world about what a travel ban meant to them. And so, while it does seem difficult to believe we are back here again, one thing has not changed. That is, Washington will not just stand up to what's going on. We will lead on this issue, just like we have in the past. And I want all Washingtonians to know that. We have a new Attorney General, but guess what? The good news is he's as deeply connected to this issue and as resolved to stand up against it as we were back 8 years ago. The folks standing behind me represent thousands and thousands of Washingtonians. We all may have different jobs, some of us, than we had 8 years ago, right? Some of us have the same, but some have changed. But we're all still here again. And as governor, it's a challenging time. Nick, you talked about some larger issues that are going on. But we have a president who just does not seem to understand some basic things about what our country is all about, what we stand for, and what we believe in. And we're all going to work extremely hard to make sure that in Washington State, we stand up for those values. Thank you very much.
So that is all of our speakers. We will now give an opportunity to the press to ask any questions that they may have. And we ask that you direct your questions to whoever you'd like and call them out by name. Please come forward. We're very close to an airport. The planes are loud, and you don't have a mic.
Hi, from the Seattle Times for Governor Ferguson. Attorney General Nick Brown said that there's efforts to see if there's legal footing to challenge this ban. Are there other sort of efforts that you are putting together to help out these families who you are recognizing are worried that they won't be able to be reunited with their loved ones?
And I'll just repeat the question. The question, I think, went to make sure I understood it. Hey, are there, other than a potential that Attorney General Brown is looking at legal options, are there other efforts we are doing as a state? The answer is certainly yes. So I have a team who's deeply connected to this issue. We, of course, are reaching out to organizations. That's why we're here today, right, to see what the impacts are and how we as a state can help out if there are individuals, families, communities that are impacted by this. And so part of having this conversation is to communicate that to the people of the state of Washington. Look, we're dealing with that on a whole host of issues. Right, deportations that we're seeing, we create a rapid response team to help impacted families of that, of those individuals as well. And so that's going to be something we're looking at doing in any way we can to make sure we're helping out families and organizations. And we encourage folks to reach out to my office if they have any questions or things we can do to help out. Obviously, we want to be as helpful as we can to the Office of the Attorney General as well. I deeply appreciate when I was Attorney General for the litigation we brought against the Trump administration, we were heavily dependent on the Governor Inslee, and state agencies to help us in the work that we are doing. So obviously we're making sure we're being as helpful as we can for Attorney General Brown and his team as well.
We'll take one more question, and then actually we'll open it up for the press to be able to interview directly anyone that they choose. One more question? And I see one of the organizers is pointing for a picture I won't forget. All right, so how about we do a group picture, and then the press, feel free to grab anyone you'd like for a one-on-one interview. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much.